If the Alfa Romeo SE048 SP had made it onto the track in its era, today we might be talking about one of the most beautiful and mysterious Group C prototypes ever created. A car that could have gone head-to-head with the Peugeot 905, the Mercedes C11, the Toyota TS010, and the last great machines of the endurance racing world. Instead, it became a ghost car. Built, developed, shown, but never entered into a race. It's a machine that looked like a finished weapon for Le Mans. It had aerodynamics developed by some of the best Italian specialists, an Abarth chassis, links to Dallara, and an engine story that stretched from the Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car all the way to Formula One. And yet, despite all of that, it ended its life as a museum exhibit. The SE048 SP is one of those projects that hurts the most for fans of Italian motoring, because it wasn't just a loose idea or a show car model. This was a real racing program that could have brought Alfa Romeo back into the world of sports prototypes after years of absence. At a time when the brand was being rebuilt under Fiat, Group C could have been the perfect stage for it. Ferrari was fighting in Formula One, Lancia dominated rallying, and Alfa Romeo could have returned to endurance racing. Instead, only one car was built, and it never got the chance to prove its worth. To understand why the Alfa Romeo SE048 SP came into existence, we need to go back to the second half of the 1980s. In 1986, Alfa Romeo was taken over by the Fiat Group, which completely changed its sporting and business situation. Fiat already had clearly defined roles in motorsport. Ferrari was the sacred name in Formula One. Lancia was focused on rallying and achieving great success with the Delta Integral. And Alfa Romeo needed a new field in which it could rebuild its sporting image. Previously, the brand had a proud history in endurance racing, especially thanks to the Tipo 33 series, which in the 1960s and 70s helped build Alfa's legend as a manufacturer of true Italian racing cars. The problem was that by the 1980s, Alfa was no longer the same force. Its Formula One programs had not delivered the expected results, and the brand needed a fresh idea. Group C seemed like the perfect solution. It was spectacular, technologically advanced, highly visible, and it gave manufacturers enormous freedom. Fiat already had experience with the Lancia LC2, so the natural step was to use that knowledge to create a new prototype, this time under the Alfa Romeo name. Group C itself was one of the most fascinating categories in motorsport history at the time. It was created in 1982 and, for over a decade, attracted manufacturers who wanted to build the fastest closed cockpit prototypes in the world. These were machines with performance close to Formula One, but designed for endurance races, such as the 24 Hours of Le Mans. In its early phase, the regulations strongly emphasized fuel consumption, forcing constructors to balance power with efficiency. But at the turn of the 1980s and 90s, the rules began to change. New regulations promoted naturally aspirated 3.5-liter engines, conceptually very similar to Formula One units. This was exactly the moment that opened a unique opportunity for Alfa Romeo. The brand already had a V10 engine of that capacity, originally developed with Formula One in mind, and later used in the Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car project. In theory, everything lined up perfectly. There was an engine, there was knowledge from the Lancia LC2, there were Abarth engineers, there was Alfa's racing heritage, and there was a clear need to rebuild prestige. The SE048 SP was meant to be the answer to this new era of Group C, an Italian prototype combining Alfa's ambition, Abarth's engineering, and the racing culture of the entire Fiat Group. One of the key elements of this story was the Alfa Romeo Tipo 1035 engine, a naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V10. Its origins date back to 1986, when Alfa Corse began work on a new engine designed to meet upcoming Formula One regulations. The project was led by engineer Pino D'Agostino, and the goals were extremely ambitious. The engine featured a 72-degree cylinder bank angle, 4 valves per cylinder, 4 camshafts, and a design that allowed for excellent balance without the need for traditional balancing shafts. Thanks to the use of aluminum and silicon alloys, it was light, strong, and modern. Early dyno results were promising, around 583 horsepower, and in later versions, even around 620 horsepower at 13,300 RPM. This was a true racing engine, revving like a Formula One unit, and proving that Alfa Romeo still had the ability to design highly advanced technology. Initially, the idea was to supply this engine to Formula One teams, including Ligier. But after Fiat's takeover of Alfa Romeo and the decision to focus the top category entirely around Ferrari, the project changed direction. The engine didn't disappear, however. It found its way into other concepts. First, the Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car, and later it was meant to become the heart of the SE048 SP. The Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car was another important chapter, leading to the SE048 SP. Bernie Ecclestone attempted to create a racing series in which cars resembling production sedans would hide Formula One level technology underneath. The Alfa 164 Pro car looked like an extreme version of the road-going 164, but underneath it was essentially a prototype. A carbon chassis, a mid-mounted V10 engine, advanced suspension, and performance far beyond any sedan. The idea was spectacular, but the Pro Car series never truly took off. Other manufacturers showed little interest, and the project became another dead end. For Alfa Romeo, however, it meant that they had a ready racing engine and valuable technical experience that they didn't want to waste. That's when the idea emerged to use this potential in Group C. Before the actual car was built, the V10 engine was tested in a modified Lancia LC2, sometimes referred to as the Abarth 047 SP. This was a test mule designed to evaluate whether the engine would work in an endurance prototype. And this is where the first major problem appeared. Although excellent on paper, the engine had been designed for Formula One, not for long-distance racing. Its durability and characteristics would likely require enormous investment to adapt it for endurance competition. The actual car received the designation SE048 SP, often expanded as Abarth SE048, Sport Prototypo. Although today it's most often referred to as an Alfa Romeo, the project was deeply connected with Abarth, the engineering arm of the Fiat Group. The program was handled by a mixed team of Alfa Corse and Abarth specialists, with figures such as Ignazio Lunetta overseeing the work. Dallara and the Fiat Research Center were also involved, particularly in aerodynamics. The design itself is often attributed to Giuseppe Petrotta, who had experience with Osella, along with aerodynamic specialists. The car followed the standards of Group C prototypes of its time: a closed cockpit, covered rear wheels, a low silhouette, front-mounted radiators, and extremely clean body lines. At the same time, designers ensured that the car was instantly recognizable as an Alfa Romeo. At the very front, the characteristic Scudetto grille was integrated into the nose, blending brand identity with pure racing form. The result was a beautiful compromise between function and identity. The SE048 SP did not look like an anonymous prototype. It was low, flowing, aggressive, and unmistakably Italian. Exactly what many fans would imagine an Alfa Romeo competing at Le Mans should look like. Aerodynamics were one of the most important elements of the entire design. The SE048 SP was being developed at a time when Group C prototypes had already reached an extreme level of aerodynamic sophistication. Alfa's bodywork was designed to minimize drag, generate high downforce, and make the best possible use of a flat floor and diffusers. Project materials mention a double diffuser at the front section and additional channels along the rear of the car. The aerodynamic performance was expected to be so effective that it required a very stiff and lightweight carbon monocoque, along with pushrod suspension, to manage airflow and ensure stability at extremely high speeds. The rear of the body was shaped to allow for the cleanest possible airflow exit, while the covered rear wheels helped reduce turbulence. Compared to later prototypes from the 1991 season, the car featured a relatively simpler rear wing, which suggests that its main design was finalized around 1990. Despite that, the car looked incredibly mature. It wasn't exaggerated or chaotic. It had the elegance typical of Italian design combined with the technical precision of a serious racing prototype. That's exactly why many fans consider the SE048 SP to be one of the most beautiful Group C cars ever created, even though it never raced. From a construction standpoint, the Alfa Romeo SE048 SP followed the very best principles of its time. At its core was a carbon fiber monocoque, offering low weight, high rigidity, and improved safety. The body panels were made from composite materials, while the suspension was fully independent, using a pushrod layout typical of advanced prototypes and single-seaters. The braking system relied on top-tier technology. Sources mention carbon or carbon ceramic brakes, developed with the involvement of companies such as Brembo. Power was sent to the rear wheels, and the gearbox was a 6-speed manual transmission. The car's weight is most commonly quoted at around 900 kilograms, although depending on configuration and development stage, it may have varied. With more than 600 horsepower, this gave it a power-to-weight ratio worthy of top-level racing machines. The SE048 SP was intended to compete seriously in the World Sports Car Championship, not just to showcase technology. It's difficult today to provide a full technical specification because the project remained secret and never reached full public race documentation. However, the assumptions were clear. A mid-mounted engine, lightweight structure, extreme aerodynamics, racing suspension, composite bodywork, and performance capable of challenging the best. The biggest mystery surrounding the SE048 SP remains its engine, because two different power units appear in its story. Officially, the car is associated with the Alfa Romeo V10 Tipo 1035, the same engine used in the 164 Pro Car project. This was meant to be the foundation of the entire program. It produced around 620 horsepower at over 13,000 RPM and was one of the earliest modern V10 engines built for the 3.5-liter formula. However, later photographs of the car with its engine cover removed show a V12 unit, most likely sourced from Ferrari. Many sources suggest that it was a 3.5-liter Formula One engine with 5 valves per cylinder, producing around 685 horsepower at approximately 12,750 RPM. The decision to replace the V10 with a V12 likely came from several factors: reliability issues with the Alfa engine during testing, the opportunity to use existing Ferrari technology, and internal Fiat marketing strategy. After all, Ferrari was the group's flagship Formula One brand. For Alfa Corse engineers, this was not an easy decision to accept. An Alfa Romeo prototype powered by a Ferrari engine felt like a compromise imposed from above. Ironically, this decision only added to the mystery of the project. To this day, some refer to the SE048 SP as a V10 Alpha, while others see it as an Alpha powered by a Ferrari Phi 12. In practice, the Alfa Romeo SE048 SP never had the chance to complete a full development and racing program. The project was conducted under strict secrecy, and testing was carried out mainly using test mules, including the modified Lancia LC, 2 fitted with the Vi-10 engine. Some sources suggest that the SE048 SP itself may have completed limited test runs, as the surviving car shows signs of use. However, there is no clear documentation confirming a full-track testing program. There are also mentions of testing at the Balaco circuit. What is certain is that the car never competed at Le Mans or in any round of the World Championship. It was stopped before it could become a real contender. The reason was not a single failure or poor performance. It was corporate decision-making. In September 1990, Fiat's management in Turin definitively halted the Group C program. Officially, the reasons were rising costs, an uncertain future for the championship, and declining popularity of the series. Additionally, Alfa Romeo needed investment in its road car lineup, which at the time was outdated. For motorsport fans, this decision was painful. But from Fiat's financial perspective, it was not entirely unreasonable. After the program was cancelled, Alfa Romeo's resources were redirected elsewhere, toward touring cars. And here the story takes an ironic turn. While the SE048 SP never raced at Le Mans, the money and effort that could have gone into Group C helped develop the Alfa Romeo 155. And the 155, in racing form, became one of the biggest icons of touring car motorsport in the 1990s. The Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti won the DTM Championship in 1993, defeating German manufacturers on their home ground. It also achieved success in other series, including the British Touring Car Championship in 1994. From a business standpoint, Fiat made a practical decision. Touring cars were closer to production models, easier to connect with road cars, and more relevant for a brand that needed to rebuild sales. But from an emotional perspective, it's impossible not to regret the SE048 SP. Alfa Romeo had a strong heritage in sports prototypes and could have returned to Le Mans in spectacular fashion. Instead of a red Italian prototype on the Group C grid, we were left with a museum legend and unanswered questions. Would the car have been competitive? Would the Ferrari V12 have survived endurance racing? Could the Alfa V10 have been developed properly? We will never know. How many Alfa Romeo SE048 SP cars were built? The safest answer is one complete car. There were, of course, test mules, primarily the modified Lancia LC, two used for engine testing, sometimes referred to as the Abarth 047. There were also likely models, development components, documentation, and project parts. But when it comes to a complete Alfa Romeo SE048 SP prototype, there was only a single example. The car was preserved and eventually placed in the Alfa Romeo Museo Storico in Arese, where it remains alongside other remarkable projects, including the Alfa Romeo 164 Pro car. For many years, the car remained largely unknown to the public. It reappeared more prominently during events such as the Goodwood Festival of Speed in 2010, celebrating Alfa Romeo's centenary. That appearance reignited interest, and images revealing the V12 engine only deepened the mystery. The SE048 SP is more than just a prototype. It is physical proof of the hidden ambitions of Fiat and Alfa Romeo in the early 1990s. One car, no racing debut, no official career, but immense historical weight. In the world of collectors, such a machine would be an absolute one-off. So how much could the Alfa Romeo SE048 SP be worth today? This is a very difficult question, because the car has never been sold at a public auction and remains essentially a museum piece. There is no normal market for a car built in a single example, never raced, and deeply tied to a manufacturer's history. However, hypothetically speaking, its value could be enormous. Factors to consider include its uniqueness, its connection to Group C, the Alfa Romeo brand, Abarth's involvement, the possible Ferrari V12 engine, the earlier V10 story, and the fact that it is one of the most beautiful unrealized racing prototypes of the 1990s. On the other hand, it lacks racing results, homologation, and a documented competition history, elements that often drive the value of historic race cars. A conservative estimate would place its value at several million euros. A range between 3 and 8 million euros seems reasonable, assuming full factory documentation and complete condition. If the car were fully operational, with a confirmed original powertrain, and marketed as an Alfa Romeo Group C prototype with a Ferrari engine, the value could be even higher. In reality, however, for the Alfa Romeo Museum and the brand's history, it is priceless. The Alfa Romeo SE048 SP remains one of the most fascinating unfinished projects in Italian motorsport. It was a car created at a moment when the world of sports prototypes was approaching the end of its golden era. It had everything needed to become a legend. The dramatic backdrop of Alfa Romeo's acquisition by Fiat, a Formula One-derived V10 engine, the possibility of a Ferrari V12, and a Barth chassis, aerodynamics developed with Dallara, a beautiful red body, and the goal of returning Alfa Romeo to endurance racing. The only thing it lacked was the final approval from those who controlled the budget. And perhaps that is exactly why the SE048 SP captures the imagination more than many cars that actually raced. There are no results, no failures, no Le Mans breakdowns or lost battles. It exists as pure potential, a car that, in the minds of fans, can still take to the Mulsanne Straight, fight Peugeot, Mercedes, and Toyota, and remind the world that Alfa Romeo has cuore sportivo, not just in slogans, but in reality. In truth, it remains in a museum, silent and still. But its story says a great deal about an era when major manufacturers could create something extraordinary, and then cancel it with a single decision. The SE048 SP is an Alfa that never ran, but still looks ready to win.